On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with Jeff Haden about the real secret to work-life balance. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hassman, and joining me today is a repeat guest. He's so generous with his time, Jeff Haden. He's a ghostwriter, entrepreneur, influencer, and he's the author of the book Motivation Myth, which I highly recommend checking out. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me again.
Hey, Kirby, I'm wondering why you hadn't called me before now.
Right?
I know.
It's terrible.
It used to be me.
So it's funny, you recently put out an article where we're talking about work-life balance. It feels like everybody's always chasing that elusive work-life balance. So, I know I am. So how do you get it? Or can you? What's the secret, my man?
Wow. I don't know that I necessarily have it, but I will talk about it like I'm at a party and speaking intelligently.
Fair.
You're right about the work-life balance thing, and there's tons of articles and tons of content about it. And I've never really seen any that helps me other than that maybe you say, there is no such thing as work and life. There's just life. And you have to figure out a way to integrate the two. But actually pulling that off is really tricky. Because platitudes, like all platitudes, they sound great, but the execution is almost impossible. So one of the things that made me think more about it and caused me to write about it, I was at Daytona for the Rolex 24. It's a sports car endurance race that goes for 24 hours. And side note, I was hanging out with the Penske team. Roger Penske is there because he's big into racing. And this thing does go 24 hours. It's 2 p.m. all the way around to 2 the next day. So not only is it 24 hours, but it's really more because everybody gets up early and all that stuff. And so Roger's there. So my plan was going to be, sorry for taking you on a side note.
That's great.
Roger, my plan was going to be to try to make the whole 24. I don't know. So it got to be about like 10 o'clock at night. And I was starting to feel tired. And, you got crew guys in the pits that are like sleeping on lounge chairs and stuff and just trying to kind of take little cat naps. And I'm tired and I'm thinking about the whole night. And I look up and Roger Penske is sitting up on a pit box and he's the strategist for one of his teams. And he looks like he just woke up and he's 80. And I thought, okay, I'm going back to the hotel. And you, sir, I understand why you are who you are.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point of that whole long story is that I saw Michael Fassbender, the actor, X-Men and all those I think he played Steve Jobs in one of those movies. And he races Ferraris in an amateur class. So basically you have to own a Ferrari and have a relationship with someone who owns the Ferrari race team and then give them a whole bunch of money to prepare a car for you. So it's a league that I will never travel in. You probably do. It's rarefied air for me. So, but I see him and like he's bouncing around. He's energetic. He's enthused. This is before the race. He looks as happy as anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I just, I thought, wow. And the point was, and I talked to him a little bit about it later, he says, don't try to feel bad for me. I'm not trying to seem like I want a pity party. But, when I do a movie, it's 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. You're immersed. That's all you really have time to do. And he said, and so I look forward to things like this because that's just for me. It's really exciting. It's really fun. And that kind of fuels me through that time period. Again, don't feel sorry for me, but that is one of the ways that I go with it. And it made me realize that people talk about work-life balance, and there seems to be this idea that if I do 8 hours of work, I should have 8 hours of me time, and that's the balance. And nobody really gets that.
Right.
And I think that's an impossible thing to go and chase. So the quantity balance is impossible, and you might as well give that up. But the quality balance, you can go and you can chase. So you're doing your 8 hours of work, but if you only have 2 hours that you want to call me time, that should be something that you really, really want to do, or that really fulfills you, or that really makes you happy, or that helps you get towards some kind of goal you're trying to achieve in some other way.
Right.
So the analogy I use is if you like to veg out and watch TV during your me time, should you just get your remote control and flick through until you find the least objection thing to watch, which is usually what happens.
Yeah.
You find one thing out of these horrible choices, you find one that's okay. Or should you have something recorded? Should you have something on Netflix you're planning? Should you plan that out so that you do have your me time, it's as effective as possible? And so I know I went way around the barn, but to answer your question, the balance thing comes from saying, I'm very intentional about my work. Right. You are, clients are, everybody's intentional about their work. You should be just as intentional about personal time because you want to be happy and fulfilled and feel good about yourself. And by being intentional, it doesn't mean you have to be programmed and a slave to your calendar and stuff. It just means, what would I really enjoy? Let's make sure I set myself up so that I can do that. And that may be as simple as making sure that you've got that hour to eat dinner with your family or something. Whatever it is that really works for you, that's the thing to do to me time so that you'll never balance out the hours, but you can maximize the quality part.
Yeah, and I think I find that, I think it's easier to, when I do that, and I don't always do that, so it's super good advice. But when I do it, I actually enjoy work more, right? Because it gives me something that I'm looking forward to. So I love that. That's great advice. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is, I'm so impressed by the amount of articles and content that you crank out. How do you maintain the consistency?
Well, I don't know that I would agree that I maintain consistency. I may maintain output.
Fair.
But I'm not going to say that every one of them is a winner. I try. I guess this goes back in a way to the work-life balance thing. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that I write about are interests that I have that are personal. Yeah. And so I say, okay, if I like say auto racing, I like auto racing. Okay. So what can I do professionally that, creates revenue, helps me professionally, but that also satisfies that urge of, but I really like that. So how do I blend that? So I try really hard to find ways to blend my personal with the professional. So it works that way. I do a lot of fitness articles.
Right.
Well, I like fitness stuff personally, so it's natural. Why not do that? Now, I know the objection that some people would have. They would say, okay, that's good for you because, you get to choose and you get to pick some of the things that you write about and stuff. But, I have a job where I'm told what to do. Mm-hmm. But I still think that there are ways to do that. If you are a person who likes to help other people, for instance, well, no matter what your job is, you can bring that to work with you. And mentor, you can guide, you can do whatever else it is. And if you're intentional about that, then you get to get that little fulfillment itch scratched while still advancing yourself professionally. So there are ways, no matter what you do, there are ways to balance that stuff out. So yeah. I hope I answered your question, but it reminds me when I talked to Richard Branson, and I said, it's kind of wild how you do these daredevil stunts to promote the company, because he used to do some crazy things.
Yeah.
And he said, you got that wrong. I don't do those things because they promote my company. I like adventure, and I like doing those things. And I figured out a way that I could use that professionally to advance my professional stuff as well. He said, so don't tell the tax man, but if I take that balloon trip across the Pacific, that was for me. And I made it work for the company as well. And so that's another part of this. I think that people should look at a little more is like, okay, what can I take that personally fulfills me? And how do I bring that over into my business stuff? And if you do that, you'll be a lot better at the business things because you're doing things that you really like and that matter to you.
Yeah, you become passionate about it. I totally agree. I love, love, love that. So final question for you. We talked just before, I think you put out the motivation myth, but it's been a while now. For those who know me, know that I read a lot. I read the motivation myth. I really, really liked it. I'm interested and fascinated after the process sort of has gone through a little bit, right? So what did you learn from that process after, publishing it, going through the whole process? What did you learn from putting out that book?
Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
There's a whole buffet of answers that I can give you. A couple of them that probably most people can relate to is that when you do something like that and then you have people, or you're hoping that people will help you in the promotional side or stuff like that, that people that you really thought would come through, some will not. Some people will jump up and surprise you, and you'll be like, wow, I never would have imagined that. But whenever, like, I tend to not ask. I don't like to ask. I would much rather do than I would be given, or I'd much rather give than I would be given.
Sure.
And so I'm terrible at the ask. And so, how do I say this? Some people are great at taking, and they are terrible at reciprocating. And that's okay, because anytime I do something for someone, I do it because I want to, and I'm not expecting a return. But there is that moment where you say, okay, I thought we had a relationship, and I just said to you, hey, can you help me out here a little bit? That maybe you would, or at least have a good reason why you couldn't. So I think the biggest thing was that it helped me kind of look at the network that I thought I had and say, okay, really the focus of any network should be, where are the mutually beneficial relationships? Because I know I can help people, but hopefully a few would like to help me back. Not all, but a few. And then it also tells you something just about that relationship if people only take and are never willing to give, because then they're probably not the people. This is probably the biggest point of all this. They are probably not the people that you want to introduce to other people that you know, because all you're doing is setting it up where they're going to take from that person too. And I don't mind, we'll pretend it's you. I don't mind if I give 5 times to you and you never give in return, but I do mind if I connect you with someone that I respect and admire and trust and have a relationship with, and that's what you do to them. Then that's a problem.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think what happens is the universe does take care of that to a degree, because people like you and hopefully people like me stop perpetuating those folks, and somehow the karma catches up. But it's interesting you say that, because you and I have talked about, I believe, providing value first. Sometimes you get burned, and so for what it's worth, if you haven't, just say this to the audience.
Because you want to.
Yes.
Anything that comes from it is great. And if I have one other thing I can say, it's that I think people often chase, hopefully you can still see my hand, the high connection, like this ultra powerful social media presence, thinking if I can just get that person on my side, then everything will take care of itself. And I have some of those, and they do have an impact, but you get a lot more from the people that are, I don't know how to phrase it, grassroots, regular people like me and you, who like what you did, like you, and say, you know what, I want to get behind this, and I want to help, because this made a difference for me, and I think it can make a difference for someone else. And I got much more in terms of spreading the reach, so to speak, from that than I did from up here. So if I was giving the audience network advice, you don't need these folks. You need the people that care and that you care about. And if you can get them, then your life is much better, period, because those are relationships that last a long time.
No, that makes total sense. It's the passionate people that you want behind you, for sure. All right. Well, hey, you've answered my 3 questions. I always give everybody a chance to ask me one question. Do you have one for me?
Yeah, mine is going to be, it starts with the question, are you crazy?
Yes, is the answer.
A ways back we talked, and you're basically doing a podcast a day for some unimaginable stretch of time. Now you're on the blog post a day stretch. So that's a lot. I write for a living, so it's okay for me to do a post a day, but you have a bunch of other things you're doing as well. This is just one piece. So why do that? And then more importantly than that, because it has become a process for you, what have you gotten out of that you did not expect when you went into it? Because I'm sure you had goals, but I'm also sure there are benefits to it that you did not foresee.
Right, totally. So yes, the answer is yes, I am crazy. But yeah, the blog post a day is something, one of the things that I found, I was listening to a book by Mark Schaefer. I don't know if you know Mark, but he wrote a book called Known. And it talked about building a personal brand. And as I listened to it, one of the things I kind of came to the conclusion of is that everybody who is in his book and people who do something every day, they're people and the people who I admire, they are people who do things that most people believe are unreasonable, right? A post a day. Seth Godin writes every day. Gary Vee has a camera crew following him around. Casey Neistat, right?
Yep.
Like all these people do things that most people go, well, that's absurd, right? And so that was sort of the impetus for me going, well, I could write a blog every day. And what the thing that I gave myself permission was that, hey, it doesn't have to be 500 words. If someday it's 10 words, that's okay. Now, the irony is I don't almost never do that. But just letting myself off the hook helped me go. And, I started with having a few queued up and all that sort of thing. I'll tell you the thing that I've probably learned, the response on the website's been really good. We're trying to look at it by providing value every day. But the ideas, I was really concerned that the ideas would run out. And you and I have talked separately than on this, but they actually don't. And often almost better, like they keep coming. And I think you'd said to me, when you work that muscle out, it gets stronger. That has totally happened for me. And that's been a really encouraging lesson, I think.
And you're also, because you're in that flow, your mind, I don't want to sound all zen-y, but your mind you're in that mode. And so an idea that you would not have even registered, had you not been doing it, something will pop up, or you'll notice something, you go, oh, I can do that. Or, oh, that's something I never thought about, I should use that. And because you're in that framework, the stuff registers with you. Whereas if you're doing it once a week, you're probably only thinking about it the day before, and your muscle hasn't been flexed, so you're out of shape, and you didn't have that little fountain going.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thank you, Jeff.
It's all about the process.
It is. I always appreciate you taking the time. I always appreciate the conversations, and we'll have to do it again, okay?
All right. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't wait as long to call me.
I will not. I promise.
I was starting to feel neglected and unwanted. So.
Well, cool, man.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.